Hey, it's Garth Heckman again with Monday Morning Marriage Minute. Hope you're having a great week so far. I just want to take some time today. I'm not going to answer a question. I'm actually going to tell you a story, but I think you'll get a lot out of it. And if you're a guy, this is for you. If you're a girl, send this to your guy. If you're married, send it to your husband and tell him I said so. So it's about King Arthur. Right after King Arthur died, there's a mythical story, true or not, I'm not sure, about him taking over the kingdom. And he's pretty excited because he's a young kid and now king. And he thought, what I'll do is I'll go out and I'll talk to some of my people out on the hillside and some of the smaller villages that I don't get out to. But on his way, he gets captured by another kingdom, taken before that king. And the king's like, you know, typically I would kill someone when I capture them, such as yourself, because it's kind of like a trophy. But as he talked to King Arthur, he was kind of enamored at his idealism. And so he thought he'd play a little game with him. And he said, King Arthur, I'm going to ask you a question, and if you can answer it, I'll spare your life. But if you can't, then I'm going to take your life. But I'll give you up to a year to answer it. And King Arthur was a little puzzled. He thought, surely this guy must know. I've been taught by the best teachers, educators, philosophers, scientists. There's not a question that he's going to ask that I can't answer. So he said, all right, challenge accepted. He goes, what's your question? And so this king looks at him and he says, I want to know, what does a woman want? Specifically, what does a woman want in a man? Immediately, King Arthur knew, I don't know the answer to this. But he said, well, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to take a little bit of time to make sure it's the answer that you need or that you're looking for. And this king kind of laughed and said, okay, take up to a year, but if you don't get the answer right, remember, I take your life. Well, King Arthur went back to the cell and he was kind of panicked. But what he didn't know is that the other king who asked the question, he didn't know the answer either. So he was hoping King Arthur maybe had the answer, but even if he didn't, he thought, well, I'll take his life because this is a tough one. But King Arthur goes back to his cell and he starts asking everybody, all the other prisoners, hey, what does a woman want in a man? What does a woman want in a man? And everybody, they had somewhat kind of a good answer, but nobody had like the answer. And King Arthur was getting frustrated. A few months go by, and he starts asking the prison guards, and then anyone who would go by his cell and bring the food, anyone, and finally, one day, someone throws in a new prisoner, thrown into this same jail cell as King Arthur, and King Arthur's muttering about this problem, and this other prisoner hears him, and he says, listen, I know what you need. You need to go talk to the old witch. And King Arthur said, who's the old witch? He said, oh, she's this woman who lives outside of town. And King Arthur was a little leery of witchcraft, so he said, is she really a witch? And they said, no, she's not really a witch. And King Arthur was like, then why do you call her the witch? And this prisoner said, because she's the most disgusting, vile, horrible-looking, smelling person in the world. That's why she has to live outside the village. And King Arthur said, but why would I ask such a woman? And this guy said, because she's wise. She's very wise. Well, King Arthur was at the end of his rope, and he thought, I'll do whatever I have to do. So he sends word to this witch. Sure enough, the next day she shows up in his prison cell. She says, what's your problem? How can I help you? King Arthur tells her the situation. She says, well, what's the question? And so he asks her, or he tells her the question is, I need to know what a woman wants in a man. And the old witch kind of cackles and smiles, and she says, I know the answer to that. And he said, please tell me, I beg of you, my kingdom is at your disposal. And she said, I'll tell you, but on one condition. And King Arthur said, anything, just tell me. She said, I want to marry your best friend. And with that, King Arthur was sick to the pit of his stomach because his best friend was Sir Lancelot. Now, King Arthur was a cool-looking dude. He was pretty chiseled and, he was good-looking. But nothing and nobody held a candle to Sir Lancelot. He was a man's man. He was the man that any maiden would throw herself at. He was the most wanted and desired man in the kingdom. And he was King Arthur's best friend. And King Arthur was just sick because he was like, I could never do this to my best friend. So he looked at the witch and he said, I'm going to have to think about it. She said, very well, and she left. Well, the next day, King Arthur showed up in the cell. And he said, King, I heard what happened. He said, listen, I'm willing to marry the witch if it'll save your life. And they begin to argue back and forth. King Arthur kept saying, I could never do this to you. And finally, Sir Lancelot said, listen, you know I made an oath to lay down my life for you. And that even means if I have to marry this woman, I'll marry her. But our kingdom needs you and our people need you, and you must stay alive. I'm willing to do this. So King Arthur just shakes his head and says, okay. So he sends for the witch. She comes back the next day. He says, I've talked to Sir Lancelot, and he's agreed to marry you. She is wonderful. She's all ecstatic. She leans forward and she whispers the answer into King Arthur's ear. And he's amazed. She is the wisest woman in the world. He quickly sends for the king and says, tell the king I know the answer. In minutes, he's standing before the king. And again, the king's quite giddy because he doesn't even know the answer, but he didn't want to let King Arthur know. So he said, well, if you have the answer, I'm ready to hear it. But if it's not the right answer, remember, it will cost you your head. So King Arthur leans forward and he said, what does a woman want in a man? She wants a man who wants what the woman wants. And this king was so baffled by how simplistic and genius it was, he immediately released King Arthur and said, be on your way. King Arthur jumps on his steed, starts racing back to his kingdom. But the whole time he's thinking about, I have to plan the best wedding and the best reception ever for Sir Lancelot, because he's taken one for the team here, like big time. So when he gets to the kingdom, they start planning this huge wedding and reception. A few weeks roll by, they have the wedding. It's just amazing. But man, the woman, even in a wedding dress, even after they tried their best, she still looked just vile. It was like dressing up a pig, you know? Didn't help. Well, then the reception, and it was a huge party. And halfway through the reception, King Arthur gives Sir Lancelot and his new bride a beautiful mansion as a gift, and they're all ecstatic. And at that point, then, the witch leans over to Sir Lancelot and says, honey, I'm going to go back to the mansion and get ready for tonight. And Sir Lancelot's thinking, oh my goodness. But Sir Lancelot sticks around for the reception until the last guest leaves. And King Arthur thinks, well, I'll walk you back to the castle and kind of give you a pep talk and get you ready for tonight. And so he's giving him the good old attaboy speech and thanks for taking one for the team and I got your back. And they get to the castle and he hugs him and says, thank you for your sacrifice. And Sir Lancelot goes into the castle, up the long staircase to the bedroom, opens up the doors, candles lit everywhere, goes around the corner, and there in the bed is the most beautiful, voluptuous, sensual, sexy woman he's ever seen in his life. And he's caught off guard. He's like, what? I'm sorry. I was looking for the witch. And the woman looked at him and said, my lord, I am the witch. And now he was completely confused. He said, you're the witch? She said, yes, my lord. You see, I can be beautiful during the day or I can be beautiful during the night. And as your wedding gift, I'll let you choose which one you'd like. And Sir Lancelot thought, well, man, during the day would be great because everyone would see her and they'd be jealous and they'd think, what an incredible woman. But he's like, but then I have to go to bed with her at night. He said, so maybe I'll have her beautiful at night. But then he thought, no, but then during the day, everyone's going to see how ugly she is. And all of a sudden it hit him, the advice that King Arthur was given by this very same woman. And he looked at his new bride and he said, my lady, I want whatever you want. And she smiled and said, that's a very wise answer. And because of that, I choose to be beautiful all the time. Guys, if you don't learn to want what a woman wants, things are going to get ugly. Think about it. That's your 1 Minute Marriage Monday Morning Minute. You can send your questions to 1minutemarriage@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Monday Morning Marriage Minute. Tell your friends, pass on the videos. And again, keep the questions coming. Thank you, Sandra, Luke, Jamie Ann, and Tyler, I think, for questions this week. We will get to those. I promise to answer them. But again, send your emails, questions to 1minutemarriage@gmail.com. And enjoy your spouse. They're your best friend. We'll see you later.